Hello and welcome, I'm Marina Kim and these are the latest news from Kazakhstan. Astana is following closely the situation in Kyrgyzstan. However, Kazakh authorities are very careful in their comments. So far, the reaction of the government is limited, with reinforcing the border, rendering humanitarian and financial aid, and stating that there is no necessity in bringing peacekeeping forces into the conflict zone.
The situation in Kyrgyzstan became the most discussed topic for the Kazakh government on Monday. The Interior Minister reported about the recent events to other cabinet members.
The borders are open, but the police have reinforced their positions.
The Emergency Minister Vladimir Bashko says Kazakhstan is ready to provide aid to refugees from Kyrgyzstan, even using state reserve means. At the same time, the chance of Kyrgyz refugees appearing in Kazakhstan is fairly slim.
We're talking about providing humanitarian aid and everything else required for the proper reception of citizens arriving to our country.
By evening, some news came from the Foreign Office. The family of the only Kazakh citizen in the conflict zone was safely brought home, while there are no Kazakhs amongst the casualties.
Obviously, Osh is located on the south of Kyrgyzstan, which has the lower concentration of Kazakhs than the north.
President Nazarbayev refers only to the provision of financial and humanitarian support, while his advisor Yermuhamed Ertisbayev calls not to bring in the peacekeepers, as this is still an internal conflict.
So far, there is no need for a full third-party involvement, such as the CSTO peacekeeping forces. Kyrgyzstan must handle the situation on its own. The CSTO has not yet made any concrete decisions on Kyrgyzstan. I believe that leaders of the CSTO member states are not able to make one unilateral decision so quickly.
The observers of the situation can see the correlation of two factors, namely the building of an ethnocratic state with one dominating nation and the weak and helpless country which cannot control its people. These commentaries about the crisis in Kyrgyzstan were voiced by political analyst Rustam Burnashev from the Political Solutions Institute.
Kyrgyzstan's attempt on building a democratic state with one main titular ethnic nation lasts for already 20 years. However, the peculiarity of the situation is that the country features a large diaspora of rich Uzbeks consolidated and oriented towards Uzbekistan. The lack of a strong and controlling power on the part of the current and previous governments has led to the development of inter-ethnic conflict. However, Rustam Burnashev says it is early to speak about the real scale of the situation.
Neither current nor previous governments took the responsibility to make concrete decisions. Instead, they made unpopular and sometimes even hard choices, which actually led to tragic consequences.
The events in the south of Kyrgyzstan have been planned and funded by the ousted President Kurmanbek Bakiyev and his counterparts, said Russian political scientist Alexander Knyazev, speaking to reporters on Monday. According to the expert, the ethnic hatred has been escalated even back in Soviet times. In addition, Bakiyev's family controlled the drug traffic on the south, thus current riots can be seen as an attempt to restore this control.
He has paid for the actions of both Uzbeks and Kyrgyz from criminal communities who provoked the conflict and led the riots. This way, Bakiyev wants to distract the interim government from holding the referendum and parliamentary elections. He just wants to rule southern Kyrgyzstan as its president.
On Monday, June 14th, the leaders of the Collective Security Treaty Organization discussed the ways to regulate the situation in Kyrgyzstan. More than 100 people died as a result of inter-ethnic clashes in the neighboring country. Participants of the meeting believe it is possible to use the available resources of the CSTO, including the peacekeeping forces. These are the extreme measures and we need to be careful before applying them, said General Secretary of the CSTO Nikolai Bardyuzha, speaking about the outcome of the consultations. The resolution made in Moscow was called by Bardyuzha an action plan to decrease the tension and stop the riots. The document will be forwarded to the leaders of the CSTO member states, and as the authors of the document hope, it will be approved shortly. The organization includes Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Tragic events in Kyrgyzstan did not leave Kazakh citizens indifferent, as representatives of both Kyrgyz and Uzbek ethnicities in Kazakhstan are concerned about their relatives and families back in Kyrgyzstan.
Marguba Khudayberdiahunova is of mixed Uzbek and Uyghur origins. Along with her husband and only son, she moved to Kazakhstan 5 years ago, leaving her parents and siblings back in Jalalabad. Saturday was the last time she was able to speak with her family over the phone. Since then, she knows nothing about them. Now Marguba can only hope, wait and pray. asked my father, is it true what they're saying on TV about 45 deaths? He says, my dear, we're not managing to count the dead as there are so many now. Also, they cannot leave the town and go to Uzbekistan, as they are not even able to leave the basement. Just recently, Shymkent has hosted a national assembly or a Kurultai of all Uzbeks living in southern Kazakhstan. This is the region with the biggest Uzbek community in the country. The Uzbek diaspora led by Gafur Kasimov discussed the situation of ethnic Uzbeks in Kyrgyzstan. Some residents on the streets of Shymkent made the following statements. This is exclusively an internal issue of Kyrgyzstan. It depends on their national self-awareness. They need to be wiser in this situation. When people fight with each other, it will never end up well. I think everything can be good only when people understand their government and the government understands its people. Meanwhile, Kyrgyz community in Astana is also discussing the situation in their homeland, ready to help their country by organizing humanitarian aid. As of yesterday, we were able to collect about $7,000. We raised these funds from our fellow men working at city bazaars, including Shanghai and Central Market. Kyrgyz citizens living in Astana decided to help their fellow countrymen financially because transporting food through the border may cause a lot of burden. However, the border guard officer Yernar Duspayev said that the Korday border checkpoints is operating as usual and the Kyrgyz-Kazakh border remains open.
Activists of an unregistered political party Alga based in Karaganda proposed to hold a national referendum on the early resignation of the country's president and the recall of the law on public gatherings.
The Democratic Community of Karaganda supports the idea of people's referendum. It was initiated by the activists of unregistered political party Alga, who claim that President Nazarbayev has not yet changed his mind on becoming the leader of the nation, as the bill has not been vetoed so far. Meanwhile, the president's political advisor said that the bill on the leader of nation will come in force just 1 month after it was adopted by the parliament, a term that ended on Saturday, June 13th. This is probably why the opposition is taking counter-actions, proposing to hold a national referendum to vote for the registration of the first president of Kazakhstan. Such initiative found support by counterparts from Azad and communist parties. We will not collect enough votes to hold a referendum in which we want to say no to Nazarbayev. It is an utopia, believe me. Right now, the opposition members decided to limit their efforts to demanding the government to recall the law on public assembly. Valentina Makhotina, the Alga activist, claims she's ready to fight even if she will have to do it on her own, in case other parties will not support the initiative.
In the meantime, a court session is in process in Almaty, dealing primarily with an article published on January 15th by Mukhtar Ablyazov. The plaintiffs, however, do demand any rebuttals or compensations.
On Monday, the trial on the suit of Timur Kulibayev, the head of Samru Kazana Fund and the president's son-in-law against ex-banker Mukhtar Ablyazov started with an action in Abyazov's support. The rally gathered 16 people in front of the Medeo District Court of Almaty. The law enforcement agencies attempted to prevent journalists and observers from witnessing the open trial. Only after appealing to the chairman of the Medeo court was the press and members of the support team allowed to enter. Attorney Bayram Akhmetov demanded the court to recognize the article published on the internet by Ablyazov on January 15 void and tarnishing the honor and dignity of Kulibayev. We talk about specific words that Mukhtar Ablyazov used against Kulibayev. This concerns specific circumstances of the sale prices and his claims, and we do not say or claim that these circumstances do not correspond to reality. In his article, Ablyazov described how Kulibayev was able to make $170 million via selling the state company Aktube Munaygas to Chinese businessmen. Attorney Sergei Utkin, who represents the interests of Ablyazov, is surprised that the president's son-in-law is not asking for a refutation of this information. Utkin asked Kulibayev's representative to clarify the scheme of Aktube Munaygas share sale. The attorney is afraid to say even a word about Kulibayev's involvement in any particular schemes, and it doesn't bring any credit to the attorney, who is a former Supreme Court judge. This is frankly stupid. Since attorney Akhmetov failed to present arguments in favor of Kulibayev, Sergei Utkin made a motion to invite the plaintiff himself. However, the judge Kuralay Kalikeyeva refused to satisfy the motion and postponed the verdict announcement until June 15.